In my continued effort to share with you different neighborhoods and communities in the Sarasota area, today I'm going to bring you part 3 of some of the best neighborhoods here in Sarasota. Now, these 3 neighborhoods I'm going to share with you today are all right in the heart of Sarasota, not too far north, south, east, or west, and they're all right at about the intersection of Bahia Vista and McIntosh. So these 3 communities are going to be the Lakes Estates, Tamaron, and Woodland Park. Hi, I'm Jill Thomas, and I'm here to help. There are 3 neighborhoods around this intersection of Bahia Vista and McIntosh. Now, this is zip code 34232. Now, what's nice about this area is you're almost right in between 41 and I-75, which run north and south. And then if you just take Bahia Vista west, you're going to be in downtown Sarasota in no time at all. Maybe 10 minutes, 15 if you need to park and kind of figure out where you're going. And then 5-10 minutes from there, you're going to go over the Ringling Bridge and you're going to be at St. Armand's Circle and Lido Beach. So that's fantastic. And then if you just head a little bit northeast from there, you're going to be in Lakewood Ranch, which is going to take you maybe 10 minutes to get there, 15 depending exactly where you want to go in Lakewood Ranch, 20 minutes. And of course, it depends on traffic. But really, ideally, you can hit University in no time at all, be up at UTC. So that's why this area is fantastic. The homes aren't new, but they definitely offer a lot in terms of location. Now, all of these neighborhoods offer just something slightly different. They're similar in a lot of ways, but then they do have their own differences and pros and cons. So if you're maybe not into new construction, maybe you don't want really heavy HOA dues, there's no CDD fees there, then these neighborhoods might just be a good fit for you. Number 1 is the Lakes Estates. Now, this neighborhood is at the southeast corner of Bahia Vista and McIntosh. They have 2 access points. It's not gated at all. None of these communities are going to be gated that we're going to talk about today, but that does help keep the HOA dues lower. So the Lakes Estates, or honestly, I just call it the Lakes. So if you hear me say that instead of using the word estate, it's the same thing. So the Lakes, there's maybe about 200 properties in there. Now, most of those are single family homes. There are actually a few villas or condos right at the front of the community, right? They're both access points on McIntosh Road. So you're going to see a few of those, but primarily it's single family homes, and that will be my main emphasis in this video. Most of the homes were built in the 1980s, mid to late 1980s. There's just a few that were built in the early 90s, but that's what we're looking at. These homes are, definitely over 30 years old now, which to me is still mind-boggling because I still in my little head think it's considered a newer neighborhood. But time has continued to march on. So some of these homes now are over 30 years old. But let me share with you some of the good things, the great things I like about this neighborhood. So let's hit the pros. First, the lot sizes are pretty good. Now, there's a lot that are between like 12,000, 14,000 square feet. Now, when I say that to people, they don't really understand what that means. They say, okay, put it in acreage. So that's, maybe about a quarter to a third of an acre. But there's some that are even larger than that are half an acre. There's even a few that are up to almost an acre. So I like that too, because it does offer some visual variety since it's not all like a standard every lot's 8,000 square feet or something like that. So that does offer just some good variety in the neighborhood. And then if you want a smaller lot or a larger lot, you might be able to find it there in the lakes. Then there's a lot of mature landscaping. You're going to see my little video clips here. Lots of big trees. I think that's super lovely, and I think it's beautiful. Now, in terms of the size of the homes, they're on average between 2,000, 3,000 square feet. There are a handful that are quite a bit bigger than 3,000, but I would say on average, that's what you're looking at. There's a couple that are even less than 2,000, but again, we're just going to kind of get some general averages. As I already mentioned, there's these little villas or condo type properties at the front of the community. Now, think of it more like, maintenance-free condos, even though they're sort of like villas, a couple different styles. And so those are sort of nice too. So if you like the area, that's just a hidden little section where they do have these maintenance-free properties. You'll have some adjoining walls with your neighbors, but a lot of people don't even realize that they're there. Now, in terms of amenities, there's a community pool, a playground, a fitness center, and tennis courts. I knew there was one more thing. So that's really great too. So if you don't have a pool, you can definitely use the community pool. It's not a resort style pool, but it is very nice, and it's on a little lake or retention pond. Now, in terms of HOA dues for the single family homes, it's about $1,300 a year I saw where some were a little bit more, some a little bit less, but just to give you an idea. And then for those condos or villas, it's about $485 a month. And again, there are no CDD fees. Now, all of these properties are on county water and sewer, so that's nice. So no septic tanks and no wells. In terms of the styles of the homes, they were built in the 80s. I think there was a huge transition around that time in terms of how the homes were, being built and the features. So you're going to see a lot of these homes, not all, but most of the homes are going to have really nice high ceilings, especially in the living areas. You're going to see more vaulted ceilings, some pretty good windows, lots of natural light. I think it's beautiful. Now, back in the early 90s, I babysat for a few people in there. And that's why in my mind back then, those homes were only a few years old. So that's why it's kind of stuck with me like that. But it was the first time I saw a two-sided fireplace. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So one, side was in the dining room and one side was in the living room. So I thought that was kind of fun as a very young adult seeing that. And then just in terms of the overall style of the homes, most of the homes are ranch. There are a handful of two-story homes. They're not super cookie cutter, although they all blend pretty well in terms of continuity. It's not like anything stands out or seems like it's an eyesore. So I think it's a great neighborhood for that as well. Now, in terms of cons, like I already said, a lot of these homes were built in the 1980s. And because you're going to see a lot of variety of styles, there's even more variety today because some of those homes are going to be updated and some of those are going to probably be in desperate need of a good facelift, whether new kitchens, new floors, new kind of everything. And then, of course, because of the age, we have to look at those roofs, those air conditioners, hot water tanks, all of those important mechanical things in a house. Now, of course, by this point, the roof and the AC has been replaced at least once, if not twice. And so there's a good chance that if you purchase a home in there today, that you're going to need to replace those things again sooner than later. My least favorite part of this community, and that is a lot of the properties are in a flood zone. So Philippi Creek backs up to the one side of the community. And so you have to really watch that and know that if you're getting a mortgage, you're going to have to get flood insurance. Now, I do know that the county has made changes to that and has improved Philippi Creek and something with the drainage because, again, back in the day, back in the 90s when I was living, here and babysitting for people, you could drive past the front of the Lakes Estates. Like I said, there's two entrances on McIntosh Road, and you would see people parking their cars at the front of the community and around like the entrance island when it rained really hard because the streets back in there would flood so much. So people would park their cars up front and then walk to their homes. I haven't seen it like that in years, probably 10 years. So I definitely have made huge improvements with that, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then I also recommend too that if you're living down here before you buy, or you want to maybe resize your home, buy a larger home or scale back a little bit, to drive through some of these neighborhoods that might be prone for flooding or be in flood zones when we do get those heavy rains and see, okay, what's the reality of this? What might this look like? And then you can have greater peace of mind of going, okay, yeah, it's in a flood zone, but it's not that bad. So that's just my one little suggestion in regards to that. So now, this video is being recorded in the early 2022, but I do want to talk about prices. And of course, right now the market's pretty crazy and prices are going up. So whenever you watch this video, this might have changed drastically one way or the other. But currently right now, I would say you're going to have to spend at least $600,000 on a home in the lakes. I don't think you get anything for much less unless for some reason it really had some serious issues with the home. Otherwise, minimum 600, but even 800,000 would not be unheard of. So that's a little tidbit there, a little overview there on the Lakes Estates. Number 2 is Woodland Park. Now, Woodland Park is on the other side of Bahia Vista, on the other side of McIntosh from the lakes. It's at the, northwest corner of Bahia Vista and McIntosh, but not directly on the corner, because right there on the corner is a church. So it's just on the other side of that property there. Now, in Woodland Park, there are about 200 homes, and they were all, again, just like the lakes, built primarily in the 80s. Now there's one little section in Woodland Park called the Oaks at Woodland Park, and I'm including that in all of this. And those homes were built a little bit more recent than that, more like in the late 90s or early 2000s. So that's just kind of like a smaller section or enclave of about 70 homes of those 200 from what I can figure out from digging into the tax records. I could be off by a little bit, but that's what I believe is the case. Now let's talk about the good things about Woodland Park. First, Woodland Park isn't called Woodland Park for nothing. There are, again, just like the Lakes Estates, lots and lots of trees, and it's really pretty. I love all of the trees that are in there. It just offers a lot of shade, and it just makes it kind of quaint and sweet. Now, in terms of lot size, with a few exceptions, on average, the lots are going to be between 7,000 and 13,000 square feet. So some are going to be a bit smaller, and some can still have some decent size to them. So if you're looking for, doing less yard work, because sometimes I do have people that ask for that. I just want a smaller yard. You might be able to find that in Woodland Park. Now, just like the Lakes Estates, the homes blend well, but they're not super cookie cutter, as you drive up and down the streets. And I think that adds something to the homes as well. So it gives it a nice feel, lots of curving roads, not a lot of straight roads. And that I think is a nice feature in a neighborhood. Now, depending on which section you're in, your HOA dues are going to be either $500 a year or $675 a year. Now, in Woodland Park, there are no amenities, so no pools, no playgrounds, fitness centers, or anything like that. And again, no CDD fees. And then finally, everything in this community is on public utilities. So we're talking the county, water, and sewer. Okay, so let's talk about those cons. Just like the Lakes Estates, because of the age of these homes, you do need to look at those roofs, air conditioning, and of course, you're going to see different levels of updating in all of these properties. So if you want a project, you might be able to find it in there. If you don't want a project, you might be able to find that in there too. Now, the one thing about having all of those trees, and just like in the Lakes Estates, sometimes they can be a detriment. So you really want to be careful that you're keeping those trees trimmed back from off of your house, your roof, because you can cause roof damage, you can cause damage to your walls, or even just look to make sure that maybe there's a large tree that isn't too close to the house and could be causing some structural damage or something to the foundation. I mean, that's not super common, but nonetheless, you want to keep your eye out for that, but definitely keep those trees trimmed back because you don't want anything rubbing on your house, first of all. Second of all, it does invite critters, gives them a better avenue to go up those trees and to get to your roof and maybe get into your attic, which of course you don't want. And then of course, if we have any large storms, you don't want a branch to be falling on your house or on your car or anything like that. So there's definitely pros and cons even to having a lot of trees on a property. Well, Woodland Park, just like the Lakes Estates, has the way Philippi Creek goes, it backs up to Philippi Creek as well. So again, we're looking at those properties being in a flood zone. And then another thing about Woodland Park is actually a lot of the homes are wood framed. Not all of them, some of them are block, but otherwise just look out for that if that's an issue for you. Some people are totally fine with that. Some people don't like it. So if the house is wood frame, of course, you're more susceptible to termites or even just wood rot in general. So I just want to point that out to you as well. Now, in terms of prices in Woodland Park, they're starting at about $500,000. So Lakes Estates was starting at about $600,000, which makes sense because a lot of those homes there are bigger, the lots are bigger. So in Woodland Park, kind of similar neighborhood with no amenities, but everything's just a little bit smaller. So now you're looking at starting at $500,000 and then it goes up from there. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you. I went on a listing appointment in Woodland Park with a colleague of mine. He asked me to go with him and co-list a house with him. So we go to meet these folks. Well, he knew this. I didn't know it at the time until I got there, but the seller, Mrs. Seller, is actually the daughter of Louis Armstrong. Yes, that Louis Armstrong. It was so cool to talk to her and hear stories and things like that. And that was really awesome. Now, we didn't get the listing, but they didn't sell the house at all. So it's not like it was a fail on our part at all. But man, what a cool story. So if you ever you ask me to come to your house for a listing appointment or you come down here and we look at properties together, I will fill you in a little bit on that. But yeah, really, really neat story. But who would have thought that Louis Armstrong's daughter is living right here in Sarasota in Woodland Park. Number 3, last but not least, let's talk about Tamaron. Now, Tamaron is directly across the street from the Lakes Estates at the southwest corner of Bahia Vista and McIntosh. And they have 2 entrances, one that's on McIntosh and one that is on Bahia Vista. Now, all of these homes were built in the 1970s and there are about 500 properties in there. So this neighborhood's definitely bigger than the Lakes or Woodland Park. Now let's talk about the pros. Now a lot of things are kind of similar to the other 2 neighborhoods just because of the age of the home. So again, look out for the roofs, look out for the AC, look out for updating, all of those kinds of things. The lots are a little bit smaller. They're typically between 7,000 and 11,000 square feet, with a few exceptions. There's a few that are a little bit bigger, but that's what you're looking back. So it's just definitely a scaled back version of the other two neighborhoods. Oh, and something I didn't mention about the other two neighborhoods, but I'll mention it now, but here in Tamaron, there are a lot of what we call retention ponds. So they're man-made lakes that just offer variety for a homeowner. So you're not just backed up to other neighbors, you can be on some water. So Lakes Estates and Woodland Park have those as well. And usually the lakes are interconnected underneath, so it kind of helps with preventing algae from building up without having a fountain in the middle to keep water flowing. So of course you might have, fish in there, or you'll see a lot of birds and ducks, turtles. And of course, on occasion, you might see an alligator. Never seen any of them in any of these neighborhoods, but I guess it could happen. And then sometimes in these neighborhoods too, you can go fishing. It's just catch and release. You wouldn't want to eat those fish anyhow, so it's not legal to take the fish, but usually you can drop a line in those ponds, catch something, and then, like I said, release it. One other thing I didn't mention about the other two neighborhoods are deed restrictions. So all these neighborhoods do have deed restrictions. When you're paying those HOA dues, they're gonna kind of cover a few things, but like in Tamaron, I'm aware that they do not rule with a heavy fist. I mean, they definitely have some rules, but it's usually not terribly crazy on things that you can do with your property. So keep that in mind as well, that you want to check those rules and regulations or covenants before you purchase a property. The HOA dues in Tamaron are only $75 a year, so considerably less than the other neighborhoods. Again, there's no amenities or anything like that, no CDD fees. And then what's probably the best part about this neighborhood compared to the other two is no flood zones. Nothing's in a flood zone. None of the properties are. So that is fantastic. So you don't have to worry about that. The other thing I like about Tamaron is there's maybe not as many trees as the other neighborhoods, and even though the homes are older, when you're driving through the neighborhood, you don't feel like the homes are super on top of each other either, even though the lots are a bit smaller. So I can appreciate that. And because these homes were built in the 70s, you're not gonna have the high ceilings or anything special like the other neighborhoods have, but a lot of times the homes are wider. You might have several sets of sliding glass doors that go out to the lanai or the pool area. So that gives it a nice open feel, even though the ceilings are lower. So let's talk about those cons. Again, age of the home. So watch those roofs, ACs. That can be a big deal here in the state of Florida with getting homeowners insurance, is the age of the roof, even though there's life left on it. So if somebody's bragging and say that I've got 30 years shingles on it and the roof is 18 years old, you're probably not going to be able to get homeowners insurance. And I did a whole video on that. So that's why I keep bringing that up. That's a big thing here. And then because the homes are older, I already mentioned, maybe you don't have as many high ceilings, but there's other pros in terms of the width of a house. And not all these homes, I would say, have a super open floor plan. It's not like it's separate rooms, like here's a separate kitchen, separate dining room. I guess I call it semi-open. And I've seen over time people knocking down walls to open it up more, just to give it a little bit more of a modern feel. So you're going to see that as well in Tamaron. And then the prices in this neighborhood start at about $400,000. So again, we're jumping from $600,000 to $500,000 and now minimum of $400,000. So let's recap on this. So all these homes at the corner of Bahia Vista and McIntosh, excellent locations, kind of three different starting price points, 600, 5, and 4. So there might be something for everybody if you're looking in this area. Now again, some of the homes might need work, some of them won't need work. You got to be open-minded about that. Watch for those flood zones, watch to see how much that might cost. In addition, for you to own that property, watch for the properties that might be wood frame. That's important as well. On the upside though, even though these are in HOAs, usually the rules aren't too crazy and the dues are not out of control either. No CDD fees. So those are kind of in a quick recap, all the pros and cons of living in this area. So now what do you think of this area, the general types of these homes? Would this be a good fit for you? Let me know and put it in the comments below. Now, if you're new to my channel, hi, I am Jill Thomas, and each week I bring new videos about living here in the Sunshine State. I'd like to talk about, of course, more specifically, my area, Sarasota, Bradenton, and the surrounding areas, and then, of course, real estate. So if this is something that's of interest to you, I encourage you to tap that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell, and keep on watching. And then when you're ready to kind of take the next step, if you have more questions, I get lots of people who call me with different questions. Please give me a call, text, or email me. I'm here to help you out and to navigate this process of buying or selling here in the Sarasota Bradenton area. Well, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.